I'm Miriam Joy and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to be doing a video on color blending or floating. Kind of some different terms that you may hear used. I use a lot of it in my videos and a lot of people ask me how to do it or what it is, so we want to cover that. My original roots are being a toll painter teacher, so I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do it and also a couple of different brushes depending on what you have. Sometimes you also refer to it as shading or highlighting, but that's just simply whether the color is lighter or darker. So let's talk about some brushes. You can use any type of flat brush, and when I was teaching I taught was with an angle brush. That's how I was taught, and that's how I taught my students. I actually prefer it with an angle brush, but either one is okay. And just depending on how wide you want the blend to go across is the size of brush you pick. So it just depends on how wide you want that flow to come out. So I'm going to show you the old-fashioned way, and I'm going to start with one of my favorite brushes. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to wet my brush. Then we're going to zoom in here a little bit, and I'm going to show you, and this is just using water. See the shininess on the brush? You lay this down until the shininess goes from shiny to dull. We'll do that one more time so you can kind of see that. And it goes right to dull. Other people say it's easier to come in and lay it down once and lay it down on the other side, and then you have enough water in your brush. So either way works fine. So we're going to come over to our acrylic paint, and this is called a paper palette or a palette paper, and there's different things you can use for this. You can find this in the craft stores or the art stores, and it really is nice, and if you blend it you can make it go a long ways. But you also could use wax paper or a paper plate. Sherry Briscoe taught me if you use one of the shiny real plastic ones, after you're done you simply rinse it off and you can use it again. And I use a paper plate, but I don't use the kind where you can wash and use again, so that's kind of a little tip as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to dip our brush into the paint, but we're going to only dip about half of that brush in there, so that it is only half on our brush. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull it and blend it out, and we're going to do that a few times. So what you're going to see is a lot of paint going to no paint, and then you should also come back and go the other direction as well. So you also, if you notice that the paint is coming through on this side, you also can pull this out a little bit, or if you have a little bit too much water. And then you simply go to your project, and I'm going to use a gourd piece on an oval because on the oval it helps it pop out. And we're just going to walk this down. Now it needs to be a little bit wetter. So I rinsed it, I reloaded it, and I blended it out again. Now that's something that people don't always get right. They want to just go straight back to here and do it again. Now when you're doing it with just water, you want to make sure that you do that step every time. Rinse, reload, and that one is too wet. If you can see on there, the water goes all the way through. The weather's a little bit different today, so I'm kind of having to adjust the moisture. And we're going to go back. Now when you're floating, you don't want to go back over one again until it's dry, because all you're doing is lifting the color back up, and you don't want to do that. So we leave that area alone, and we go ahead and continue working forward. And then when that area dries, you just go over it again. Now it is summer, and I'm noticing I need a little bit more water in my brush today, and that's a little bit too much water, as you can see right there. So we'll take that off. We'll run it one more time here. So play with a little bit. Okay, now kind of an easier way to do this as well. If you have it, there's some different products out there. There's one called Color Float by Delta. And I'm going to lay a tad of that down. There's also another one called Blending Medium or Blending Gel Medium. So anything that's a float or a gel medium, any of those work really well. So instead of dipping in the water, we're going to dip into the float and load that on our brush, and then we're going to go to our paint. Same way, we're going to load half, and then we're going to continue floating around. Now, because your water is different, you've got the float in there instead, you can just go back into the paint. If it's still not blending as much, then you can go in to the paint or the floating medium, or excuse me, what do we call this? The color float or the blending medium. So, and that probably is for if you're just starting out, that is a simpler way to do it. Now I want to kind of show you some different brushes here as well. We're going to use a little bit smaller. I'm going to use a flat here. And we'll do one just a little bit smaller so you can see. Now with the medium, the floating and the medium gel, you can go back over that and work that, unlike if you use it with the water. Another thing they call is walking it out. If you want it to come out farther, if you do that right, you can kind of just keep on bringing that out. And you see how we made it from a little line to a lot wider line. See the difference between the two is quite a bit. Now, you have brushes that are even a lot smaller than this, and if you wanted a real small area, you come in with your small angle or your flat, and you just put a little bit of paint on it, and you're just barely going to get a little float there. So just depending on what's your size. Let's do a wide, this is probably an inch. This is a 3/4 flat. I usually like a 3/4 angle is my personal favorite. And again, I'm going to go into the floating medium. And I have always done it with just water. Like I said, it takes a while to get used to, but once you get used to it, you'll probably really like the effect. Now there's, see, a so much wider one. But again, it's a bunch of paint going to no paint at all. When I'm doing patterns like my horses or some of the different things, and it fades into the background, if you float around the outside of the pattern with the color of your crayon, like if I was doing a brown for a horse, I would match the color of my crayon, and then it just makes that pop and come alive instead of fading into the background. So there's a lot of useful things for it. Also, if I'm doing like a sign and you have plain edges around something, if you float around the edges, it really brings it to life. So there's a lot of different uses for that. So I hope that helps and kind of gives you an idea. There's probably a lot of other videos online that you could check out as well. If you have any questions, please email me at art@miriamjoy.com, and look for a bunch of our videos we have online on my YouTube site. Go to miriamjoy.com and there's a YouTube link. I'll take you over to that, and we use the floating in a lot of them, especially the fall videos that I did. There's a lot of painting and different things in those, and you'll have a lot of fun. Thank you for joining me today. God bless.